Hey, it's your boy, Dustin from the Flying Chairs, The Rise podcast. And today, oh shit, you won't believe it. We got legendary Jim Goodall. And for those who don't know who he is, this guy is the shit. He used to work at Skunk Works, and he's actually really, really good friends with Bob Lazar and has some really interesting stories together. And yeah, he's been making a name for himself in the UFO community for a while. And he's been on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. So this guy is well known and well respected. And I'm so happy and so honored to have him here on our show. So yeah, me and Chris, you're just geeked out.
Totally.
So Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you guided yourself in this.
Okay, I'm to start off, I just turned 80, so I've been around a long time. I have a lot of people I met that are somebody today were nobody when I met them. But my love for aviation and things that go bump in the night started when I was real little. I'm from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I was born and raised in the area. Grew up in Los Altos and Mountain View, both. But when I was about 5 years old, I may have been a little bit older than that. I already gone to bed. It was still light outside, and my dad came into the bedroom and he says, "I don't know what's coming, but you got to see it." And we didn't live that far from San Jose Municipal Airport. It's now San Jose Intercontinental Airport. But so we went outside, and over the Coast Mountains, heading to Travis Air Force Base, northeast of San Francisco, were not one, not two, but 24 10-engine Convair B-36 strategic bomber. They have a wingspan of 260 feet. They have 6 28-cylinder, 4,360 cubic inch radial engines, putting out about 3,500 horsepower each. And it had 6 of them pushing the back of the wing. Plus they had 4 jets. And a B-36 could fly unrefueled for up to 60 hours. And the big joke was it only landed when the crew had to re-enlist. So that was my first experience. That was my first experience with airplanes, with machines. I've always loved machines ever since I was really little. And so fast forward to another 5 years or so, I'm about 10. It's 1955. My best friend's dad is base commander at Moffett Field Naval Air Station there in Mountain View. At the time, they had about 400 airplanes there. And Danny called me up at home. He said, you coming to Moffett today? And I said, I wasn't planning on it, but sure. It was about 2 miles on my bicycle. So I said, well, come on down. I got to show you something. So I rode my bike to the gate at Moffett. Security guards, the Marine guards called the house. He answered the phone. He came and picked me up. And we were referred to as Captain Smith's son and that friend of his. And that friend of his always had a piece of sarcasm thrown in there or irritation, one of the two. So we were around the base so much that we were invisible. There was always the same 2 kids, Danny Smith and me. So he said, I got to show you something in the big hangar. That's the big hangar 1 there at Moffett. And it's huge. It's 1,100 feet long, 400 feet wide, and 400 feet tall. And it was built to house Zeppelins back a billion years ago. So because we were around everywhere, we were hiding in plain sight. No one paid attention to us because we were always around. So we just rode our bikes right down the middle of the hangar floor to the far end closest to the base. And there's an area that was cordoned off, had black curtains. It just said keep out. It didn't say use of deadly force authorized. And there was nobody there. So we parked our bikes. Danny pulled back the curtain, and I'm looking at the still classified secret XF-104 Starfighter. And it was advertised when it finally was announced to the public, the missile with a man in it, little stubby wings. So we're in there, we're walking around, and this thing is just I mean, it's shiny, it's brand new, it's never been in the air. And then Danny said, the double dog dare, like in Christmas Story,
Oh, yeah.
I dare you to get in the cockpit. So like the 10-year-old I was, sure. So we put the boarding ladder up, open the canopy, I get in, we close the canopy, Danny latches the canopy. I'm in there for about 2 minutes, then I realize I'm sitting on an ejection seat and I don't know what to touch. So I tried to unlock it. I wasn't strong enough. Danny is on the other side trying to unlock it. He's not strong enough. So he had to go find some maintenance guys, Navy maintenance guys, who called Shore Patrol, and the Marines were there, and then a Lockheed guy there. And before you knew it, Captain Smith showed up. Now, captain in the Navy is the same as a colonel in the Air Force. So here's this Navy captain chewing our butts out, and that was 70 years ago. My butt still hurts. I mean, I'm sure some of the problems I have in my rear end were because my ass got chewed out so bad back then. No. So that was my first introduction to the skunk works.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also a juvenile delinquent. You probably wouldn't think that, but I was. Most every cop in Santa Clara County knew or heard of me. Nothing serious. These are all prank stuff that you did back as a kid.
Oh yeah, you were throwing eggs at cars.
No, we stole the train. It was
Really?
parked in a siding. It was parked in a siding. We've been climbing all over the cars, and the engine was running. This diesel fuel back then was like 9 cents a gallon or something like that. Now, this is 1956.
Okay.
1957. That's a billion years ago for everybody out there. And Rusty Brown's one of my friends, and Alan Holmes with me, and Rusty said, "Hey, the cab's not locked." So we went inside. I can read. You have a dead man throttle. You have throttle, brakes, and the switches weren't locked. So we decided we're going to go for a ride. So I think Rusty went out and moved the switch so we can get on the main line. It was a north and south line from San Jose to San Francisco, and we knew we were on the southbound track. So we're going through there. We're going through Sunnyvale. It's a 5 mile an hour zone on train. We're doing about 50, honking the horn the whole way. Whap, whap, whap. We get into the train yard. We find a way to get it off. We moved some switches, moved it to a side, and we're out there playing around. And back then they had curfew, and they enforced it. If you were out, if you were a young kid, like I was 10 or 11, you had to be home or with an adult after 9 o'clock. And we also knew that there was a freight hitting north every day at the same time. When we were able to we caught the freight, but by the time we got back to Mountain View, where we jumped off into Ice Plant. I don't know if you know what Ice Plant is. It's a succulent. You turn into Kermit the Frog. You just become green as you but you don't get hurt. So it's past curfew, and we're all concerned. We're on our bikes. We also smoked back then too. So we went in the train station, which was empty. We took the cigarette machine, turned it upside down, and shook it.
Oh,
we got about 10 or 15 packs of cigarettes, and about $10 in nickels, dimes, and quarters.
Damn, you're ruthless.
And then we had to figure out how we're going to get from here. We had about 2 miles to go to Rusty's place, where we're camping out in his backyard. His parents had a lot of acreage back then. So there was a step van sitting right next to the train station that our bikes could fit into. Rusty was good at hot wiring the vehicle, and we put our bikes in it and drove within about a quarter mile of Rusty's house and parked the vehicle. It said U.S. Post Office on the side, but we didn't bother to ask them if we could use the van, and didn't hear anything. There was nothing on the news or whatever. But I was at lunch, and I heard some kid who was talking. He was talking about his dad worked for, I think it's Southern Pacific, or I think it may have been Santa Fe. I don't recall what it was way back then. And he said, his dad said they had been looking for a train. They didn't know how it got down to San Jose, but it took them 3.5 weeks to find it. So that's probably the most significant thing I ever did.
Wow, that's
That's
pretty
insane.
yeah.
I think what this shows us, Jim, and you might not realize it, but you have been a true badass from a very young age.
Yeah. Starting about 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 1962, I had a choice: either shape up and fly right, go to juvenile detention until I was 18, or on my 17th birthday, join the United States military. And being that I aced the entrance exam, there's 5 different areas, and I had 90 or 95s in all 5 areas. So I could join the Air Force. And so that's what I just did. So on my 17th birthday, I was at the Armed Forces Induction Center in Oakland, California, with my hand up saying, I hereby swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The day before that, I was 16.
Wow.
So I got stationed at Lowry Air Force Base after basic training and tech school, and I was a communications specialist.
Oh.
And I got a set of orders to go to Edwards Air Force Base to support 3 programs for Category 1 testing. That's the very initial. How fast can it go without falling out of the sky or breaking, ripping the wings off or whatever? So I arrived there, and the 3 programs, there were 2 publicly known programs and 1 classified program. It was the YC-141 Starlifter from Lockheed. It was the North American XB-70 Mach 3 bomber, the XB-70, which I never saw fly, but I did see, and a classified program which turned out to be the Blackbird.
Oh yeah, Blackbird.
And the morning it came in on the morning of February 29th. It was leap year. It came in at about 7 a.m. And apparently when they were, 2 of them came in from the place that doesn't exist, Area 51, but also known as Kelly's Ranch or Elvis's house today. And the engines were running before they pushed them back into the hangars, and the heat from 4 J-58s, even in idle, set off the deluge system in the hangar. So it'll pump 60,000 to 100,000 gallons of water into that hangar in just a few seconds. I mean, you could literally drown. So the deluge system went off, and it almost drowned a couple of Lockheed guys.
Wow.
And all the fire alarms went off. We heard the sirens go off, and I had a line badge, so I could be on the flight line. But the barracks were 8 miles from the flight line. So I run out to the parking lot, and my truck is already gone. I was pissed. So I heard it because I was inside putting in equipment that following week. But on March 10th, I had worked so much overtime that you don't get paid overtime in the military. You get compensation time for overtime. So I have 4 days off, or 3.5 days off. Northrop Aircraft had a shuttle airplane that went from Edwards Air Force Base into Hawthorne, California, which is part of suburb of LA. That's where their headquarters were, and it flew multiple times a day back and forth. So I'm waiting for the Northrop shuttle to be loaded, and I hear a roar like I hadn't heard before. I went running down the taxiway, and I looked towards the XB-70 test pad, and I thought was the X-15 rocket plane, but the people were too small. And all of a sudden they said, "Hey, we're loading." So I went running back up the taxiway. I got in. Every seat's a window seat and an aisle seat. It's like a 12-passenger executive transport. Okay. It's a Piaggio, gull wing pusher props. So we take off right over the dry lake bed, and we bank over, and I look straight down, and I'm looking at a Blackbird.
Oh.
And this is March 10th, 1964 at 3:15 in the afternoon. I can remember it like it happened this morning. And I'm looking at it, and I couldn't believe it. It literally changed my entire life.
Sure.
So it
I-
was Easter break in Newport Beach, and my grandmother lived in Laguna Beach, and I hitchhiked into Laguna after I got dropped off at Hawthorne. And next weekend, I'm heading back. I get back to Edwards that following Monday. I'm at the section, and they hand me my work order. It's for the Lockheed hangar. And I walk into a Lockheed hangar, and I'm looking at the back end of two 2,100 mile an hour Mach 3 plus air Blackbirds. And it affected my entire life.
Yeah. No, they're
So,
very futuristic airplanes.
yeah, I mean, but
Man.
this is 1964. Those airplanes were flying at 2,100 miles an hour, the A-12
Wow.
and the SR-71 versions.
Right.
What are they doing today? We're still going subsonic on commercial transport. There isn't a military aircraft that is operational that the
Right.
public is aware of or that I'm aware of.
Sure.
I know there's shit out there, but we're still flying subsonic airplanes. What gives?
Yeah.
Now, over the course of the last 60 some odd years, I managed to become friends with a lot of people associated with the Blackbird program. I've interviewed most everyone who's crashed one or had a bailout of one.
Oh, wow.
I've talked to the guys who built it. Talked to the engine guy, the guys who designed the engine, the guys from Wyman Gorman that did all the forgings, all the way through the whole thing. And I got over the course of over 50 years, I had talked to, interviewed, or been involved with every aspect of the Blackbird.
Wow.
And somewhere along the line, and it was probably because of the late John Andrews from Testers, who came out with his sports model back in the 1990s. He was like my big brother, and because of John Andrews, he said, "I got a friend you got to meet. His name is John Lear." So in 1973, I became friends with John Lear. And John is the biggest character you've ever seen in your life. If you've ever seen him in any of his multiple interviews, he is something else. But he was certified to fly over 50 different aircraft types. He was also an A&P. He was the airframe and power plant. He had everything. And on his 16th birthday, he flew around the world in his dad's Learjet. And those 15 records still hold today. And we lost John, was it March 3 years? I think it was 22. It may have been 23. When you get old, your brain turns to mush.
My brain's already there.
I've had too much fun, and I've involved. Let's put it this way: I'm an 80-year-old pothead. I don't drink. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't try anything else but weed.
Yes, same here, Jim.
I do it because the day Challenger blew up, which is almost 40 years ago, and neither of you were even a thought in your parents. They were still in grade school.
Sure.
But on January 28th, 1986, two significant events happened. Challenger blew up on takeoff, and I was on an operating room table at Mayo Clinic. I was under anesthesia for 11 hours, going through brain surgery. I had a golf ball sized brain tumor.
Oh, shit, Jim.
My chances of survival were less than 5% if the procedure lasted 5 hours, and for every hour it dropped dramatically.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
But at age 40 years old, I came to terms with dying. And I don't give a rat shit what anybody thinks of me. If you don't like me, it's too bad. I don't care. I love the people that are in my life. I go out of the way for, literally anybody in what we're doing right here, anybody who's on a podcast who wants me on, I don't have any preconditions. You want me, if it's just you and I, you don't have an audience yet, but you want to start, you want a talking head. I'm a
That's
good
so
talking.
cool, Jim.
I'm
Oh,
a good
that's so.
talking head, and
Oh,
I've never turned anybody down, and I won't. So if there's anybody out there in the internet world that has a podcast that wants to talk about spooky airplanes, things that go bump in the night, my dear friend John Andrews, John Lear, and my friendship with John Lear led to me becoming friends with Bob Lazar.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So, and it's gone on from there. And the way I met Bob,
Yeah. Tell us.
in November of '88, the United States Air Force announced 2 stealth programs, one on the 11th of November, one on the 22nd. And I can't remember which one was which, but they announced the existence of the B-2 stealth bomber, the Spirit, as they called the code name. And the other was my mind wanders sometimes, was the F-117 stealth fighter.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I called, this is November, Christmas holidays, everything was over, Thanksgiving was over. It's now the first week of January of '89. They announced the existence of the F-117. They had a terrible photo taken from a KC-135. It was backlit. They used a telephoto. The image was all squished. You couldn't see the real true shape of it. But I called Lear up. He lived in Las Vegas. And said, John, he said, what are you doing this week? He said, oh, I'm in between flights. I said, I'm flying into Vegas. I'm going to rent a car, and we're going to go to Tonopah and see if we can find an F-117 to photograph. Sounds great. So I arrived at McCarran, rented a car, went to John's place, picked him up. So we're hitting up US 95 from Las Vegas, which goes to Tonopah, the town of Tonopah. And about three quarters of the way, maybe 2/3 of the way to Tonopah, you pass a place called Scotty's Junction. Everybody's sort of familiar with Scotty's Junction, only because it was a legal house of prostitution that the government took over because they didn't pay their taxes, and they ran it out of business. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, right.
Unless the product was spoiled. I have no idea.
The bunnies went bad.
Yeah. But about 15 miles north of Scotty's Junction, an F-117 flew right over the road about 1,500 feet, about a 45-degree angle. I almost crashed the car.
Oh, shit.
So we got into the town of Tonopah. We got a quick bite to eat, and we headed east on US 6. You go 14 miles, and there's a big blue and white sign that says Tonopah Test Range. And on top of it is a nuclear weapon shape. It's a B-43, and it has a rocket booster on the back of it. They test ballistics, flight of weapons in that area.
Hmm.
So we drive 18 miles down the road, and you come to this guard shack, big one. You see the man camp for they call it Tonopah Test Range. They refer to it as TTR. I have military ID, but I can't get on a location that's classified. So I told me, hey, let's just drive down the fence line. That's in public lands. And we just drove the fence line about 2 miles, and you're looking down the whole base. Now, this is before digital cameras.
Sure.
So I'm shooting with Kodacolor, and I normally shot with Kodachrome, but that would take over a week to get it processed at Kodak and then back to me. So I'm shooting Kodacolor 100. I'm shooting with a Nikon camera. I have Nikon telephoto lens. We're on the fence line, and I look to the north, and I see a black fuzzy ball with a little white light underneath it, and then a sort of a bluish yellowish fuzzy ball with a white light underneath it. And I assume that was an F-117 and a chase plane. to make sure nothing falls off or nothing breaks or whatever.
Sure.
So as it's starting to fill up my viewfinder, my body starts vibrating like I'm a 10-year-old boy seeing a naked woman for the first time. I mean, I literally, I was vibrating at about,
Milk money.
at about 60 seconds, and I couldn't stop vibrating. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I'm shooting at 250th of a second. So I'm hoping nothing's blurred, but I wouldn't know until I got the film processed. So I shot all 36 or 37 exposures and rewound it, put the film, the roll of film in my pocket, and I said, Lear, let's go. So we headed on out. We went, drove the 2 miles and up 18 miles to US 6. We drove another 40 miles to Warm Springs, which is, it was a street light, used to be a phone booth and a hot spring. And it's been abandoned, but the hot spring is still there. And that's the beginning of Nevada Highway 375, which is they call the extraterrestrial highway now. So we drive down there, and I'd been to the Little Alien Inn in '87 when it was still the Rachel Bar and Grill. And we go in there, and it was Joe and Pat Travis. Joe passed away a long time ago. Pat is retired, and her daughter runs the place now. But we had a quick bite there, and I knew we weren't going to make it back to Las Vegas when the photo mats were still open. And a photo mat, if you have gray hair, you probably know what I'm talking about, and neither of you do. It's a little kiosk. It was in a parking lot of a shopping center. Most of them were taken over by baristas selling coffee.
Yeah.
But they started out as you wouldn't even have to get out of your car. You pull up, they hand you an envelope, you pull the thing off, you put your name on it, you put your film in it, seal it, hand it back, come back the next day.
Yeah.
By the time we got to Las Vegas, the photo mats were closed. So we go to Lear's place. And it's about 9:15 in the evening. And John said, oh, I have a new friend, just moved here from Albuquerque. I think you'll like him. He's waiting for his clearance to be upgraded. He has a job out in the desert. And I said, sounds good to me. And about 10 minutes later, knock on the door. John goes out, open the door, and in comes this nice looking young man, very soft spoken. Said, hi, I'm Bob Lazar.
Shit.
So we just started shooting the bull. I didn't, and I told him of my dilemma. I said, I have this roll of film. I just shot the 117. No one else has shot it yet. And I don't know if I have anything that's good. And he said, well, I have a C41 processor on the other, off of West Charleston. Let's go to my place and get it processed. I said,
that's awesome.
Great. Sounds great. So we jump in his car, and we're not more than a block from Lear's house. And he looks at me and he said, I feel sorry for that dumb son of a bitch, Lear. I said, what do you mean? He said, the idiot's from a world famous aviation aviation family, excuse me. And the dumb son of a bitch believes in UFOs. How stupid is that? He says, I'm a nuclear physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, it doesn't exist.
Sure.
And said, you could put a gun to my head and you still wouldn't convince me to say that UFOs are real.
Sure.
A year later, he's a silhouetted head, talking with George Knapp. His name was Jared, and he's talking about doing reverse engineering of alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
So I've known Bob Lazar since before he went to work out in the desert, and you couldn't put a gun to his head to convince him that UFOs were real.
That's amazing.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've been up to his house when he was in Las Vegas. Didn't quite make it when he was outside of Albuquerque or when he was in Michigan, but I've been to his place in Oregon a couple times, and he has a photographic memory. And I asked him, I said, do you remember what you told me? And this is 30 years ago. I said, You mean I didn't believe in UFOs? I said, yeah, that statement. He said, yeah, I remember that. So he is what he is. And some of the things that made it even more factual, if you want, however you want, be able to prove what he said was real. I was activated, and I was sent to the Pentagon during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I was an Air Force historian. I had 5 years active. I had a 10-year break, and then I had 21 years with the Minnesota Air Guard. So I'm an Air Guardsman, traditional weekender. I get activated for 121 days in support of Desert Storm. And my job was to interview or to brief all the media and to read every single message going to and from CENTCOM, regardless of classification, because I had a top secret SAP on my record, which means I could see special access programs. And I was looking for anything that pertained to the Air Guard or the Army Guard. I had a copy of that document, regardless of classification, enter everything into the book, put it in a special folder, and put it in a lockable safe filing cabinet. And that's what I did. But one particular day, I think there was things where there was a stand down or something, and I had a lot of free time on this one particular day, and I had Bob Lazar's W-2. I asked him if I could have a copy of it, and he sent it to me. And I blocked out his social security number, but everything else. This is a W-2 issued by the federal government to Robert Lazar.
Wow.
And I started looking for the Department of Navy that paid him. And apparently the name and the zip code of that location is classified.
Mm-hmm. So
I think it was Naval Investigative Services, but I don't recall. It was Department of Navy. And I go out, and I find the room, the door is open. I go in there, I'm in uniform. At the time I was an E6, I'm a tech sergeant. I had a fresh haircut and shine shoes, and my uniform was sharp, and I had all my ribbons on. And I go in there, and there's a young Lieutenant JG behind the desk. And I said, sir, can you tell me where this Department of Navy is? And I hand him the W-2. He looks at it and he said, Sergeant, excuse me for a minute. He walks into the 2-Stars office. Comes out about 10 or 15 seconds later. He said, the Admiral will see you now. Now, anybody who knows anything about the Navy, a flag officer or an admiral is not going to talk to an enlisted puke, especially an Air Force Air National Guard enlisted puke.
Wow.
So I go in there, and he has Bob's W-2 in his hand, and I gave him a sharp salute. He doesn't say at ease. He said parade rest. So I'm standing there, parade rest, and his hand is shaking. And he said, Sergeant, I don't know where you got this document, but if I ever see your face cross the threshold of my office ever again, you'll be the most sorriest son of a bitch NCO in the United States military. Do you understand me, Sergeant? I said, yes, sir. He said, you're dismissed. I gave him a sharp salute, then about face, and walked out. And I said, holy shit. Boy, was that a reaction I wasn't expecting?
Right? Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Yeah. So is Bob Lazar real? There's so many things that prove that he is.
Yes.
And he had no reason to lie. It fucked up his entire life by going public.
No. And if anything, the louder he was as a whistleblower, the safer he was. Because I think he was getting threatened by the government, obviously, black men, following him and fans and stuff like that after he started coming out.
He also said that if something happened to me, if I accidentally die on the road out in the desert and I'm off the road and I have a broken neck, much like the Karen Silkwood debacle back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. She was a woman that was a whistleblower that was going to go public with a whole stack of documents from Kerr-McGee plutonium enrichment facility in Oklahoma. And they find her off the side of the road. No damage to the car, but she had a broken neck. Mm. That's our government at work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, again, so the fact that even Bob has a history of this as a kid, just super knowledgeable about science, and actually was doing his own experiments at his mom's house in the garage, like he's making like rocket boosters in his like, like this stuff that
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
like a prodigy that he was doing. So that's why I think the one reason why the government did swoop him up is they saw some potential in
yeah,
this guy. So
and
uh
he
once
doesn't.
he
He
was
doesn't exist. He does not
no,
exist
exactly. I
prior.
think all these co-workers at this place don't exist.
Yeah, no, they literally. He had it the first time we went to his house when we processed the film. When we walked into his office, there was a beautiful diploma. I didn't read it. I said, "Wow, that's nice looking." Uh, and very, very. I mean, it was one from one of the Ivy League, uh, and when he was at S4, federal agents entered his house and removed everything that could prove who he was. His birth certificate disappeared, his social security card disappeared, his diploma disappeared, and a bunch
Yeah,
of other stuff disappeared. So if he wasn't anybody, that wouldn't have happened. Also, if he
exactly.
wasn't Bob Lazar, that admiral would not have had uh, the shit hemorrhage that he had when he was looking at his W-2.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
his
that's insane.
and he had no reason to lie.
No, no,
So
exactly. He
yeah,
didn't gain anything from it.
yeah.
He's no richer than he was before.
I
No,
don't know a lot about his story. Do you want to give me a rundown?
Pardon?
yeah, just basically he
Oh
was
yeah, I
just
don't know him well. Do you want to give me a rundown?
yeah. If you want to just tell us, I
Oh,
guess,
Yeah,
okay.
of his
brief
story.
of like how he was kind of just hired by the government to do reverse engineering on crashed or even brand new UFOs,
Oh,
and he was actually trying to find the inner workings of how it all works. And he actually, again, very hands on. And I think he said that he wished that he didn't come out right away because I think he would have saw more or seen or
Oh,
done more.
absolutely,
But I think
absolutely.
the human mind and the extent it was like, oh, I need to say something now because this shit is insane. I'm
But no,
touching this shit.
his wife died under questionable circumstances
Oh wow,
that was attributed to a car accident, and it wasn't. So after his first wife passed, he felt to protect himself. I think he felt he had to go public,
sure, wow,
and
that's insane.
he did. But
So yeah, yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, he is exactly. If you hear dog barking, my
that's
friend
all right.
has 3 dogs. So
We know about dogs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but when uh, when Luigi from Montreal started working on his Gravatar, the the story of Bob Lazar, Luigi called me up and we spoke for I think we were on basically a Zoom call. I think it was for 4 hours or 4.5 hours, and I sent him all sorts of stuff that he needed for the documentary. So I'm actually listed as a technical advisor on the credits when it comes out.
Oh,
They were
cool.
they were shooting for Christmas last year, but there were some technical challenges, or there may have been some technical advancements they wanted to use. But
Mm,
Bob said, when I was talking to Bob said that the image is all done in 5K or 6K. And as he's looking at it on a fairly large screen TV, said he started getting goosebumps. He
ooh,
said it was so real he could almost smell the hanger.
oh, crazy.
So now the the, the documentary is only one part of a 3-part event.
Sweet.
After the movie, after the documentary is released it'll be this summer, and it's going to be in Las Vegas.
Cool.
They were
Sweet.
trying to get the Sphere, and I don't know if they
Oh, in the
have,
sphere. That'd be some
but
shit.
it's gonna be in Las Vegas. I'm getting 10 VIP tickets, and Unfortunately for you guys, they're all been uh, uh, designated.
Yeah.
But after that, uh, they're going to come out with a museum quality 1/4-inch die cast metal S4 hanger with S4 and all this support equipment. Everything will open up, and the inside, the box that it comes in, will replicate the inside of the hanger.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's gonna be fucking cool. I mean, it's just gonna be unbelievable.
That's
Hey,
awesome.
Jim,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, you said you've always been a fan of spooky airplanes.
Yep.
And then your life slowly became more and more intertwined with the UFO community. How would you say that evolved into that?
Oh, I
Because
can
now
tell you
you're like a
exactly.
legend, you know?
I can tell you exactly how it evolved.
Yes.
I really, I've always I've always felt there's UFOs. I go outside every night with my dog to smoke weed. I live in Tucson. I can see the Milky Way.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We don't have any light pollution in the area I live in, and I've never seen anything. But my mind just went blank. The question again was,
Oh, yeah. So how did your life become so intertwined with
oh,
the
okay, yeah,
UFO
yeah. I mean, I have my brain's like a squirrel cage. There's about 25 of them up there going different directions. My dear friend of over 25 years is Michael Schratt. And Michael called me up and said, this is March of 2019. It's pre-COVID, the poison jab. Michael calls me up and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna be at the Hilton in downtown Phoenix. They're previewing Jeremy Doorbell, as I call him. I'm not a fan of his.
Yeah.
The Bob Lazar story."
Yeah.
And I said, I'll drive up there. It's 90 miles, and I drove up there, and I park. I go in. I know that George Knapp will be there, and I've been friends with George for over 40 years. And
That's
I know
cool.
Michael Schratt was going to be there. I could care less about Jeremy. And that was about the only people I knew. So I walk in there. Everybody is in the ballroom when they're showing Bob Lazar story by Doorbell. Yeah, and the vendor room was empty. There was a couple people in there, and I walked in. There was one guy sitting right there, a very comfortable chair, and said, "Yeah, I'm waiting for the thing to be over. Mind if I sit down?" He said, "No, here, join me." He said, "Hey, my name's Doc Skinner." And I said, "Well, I'm Jim Goodall." And he looks at me and he said, "Jim Goodall?" I said, "I didn't see your name on the program." I said, "Well, I didn't know I was coming here till this morning. Why would my name be on the on the program?" So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, the movie is over, and the room is filling up with people. And he said, "Well, you have to go talk with Richard Doran. I think that's his name." I have been up for most of the last 2 weeks because of my buddy.
No, that's okay, man.
And said, "I'm sure he would like to meet you." So I go there, and there's a whole crowd around his table, and I just stuck my hand through the crowd and put my card on his table, and I walked away. Now I'm hearing impaired. I have no hearing in my left side. That was where my tumor was attached to, and they severed my auditory nerve. And I've been around jets too much, so I don't hear very well. But I'm walking away, and I hear, "Jim, Jim." No one. I don't know anybody. I just kept on going. Hey, Goodall. Oh, I'm the only one that I know is named Goodall here. So I turned around, and it was Richard. He's a guy in Rochester, New York. What the heck is his name? It's not important, but and I don't know why I can't remember his name, but it happens when you're 80. And so I was on his program. Next thing I was on somebody else's program, and pretty soon I'm part of the gang. And
Yeah.
I got latched up Lauren Felton invited me as a speaker to Disclosure Con in San Francisco in March of 2020. Michael Schratt was there. I knew that. And when I walked in there that afternoon, I rented the Dave Scott. We immediately clicked. And next thing I knew, I was on Spaced Out Radio, and there was a garage, UFO garage guys, Joe and Ben. And I was on about 10 or 12 different programs in a very, very short period of time. And it's just sort of snowballed from there. But I've only been invited to a MUFON thing once, and that was in Las Vegas. And I've never been invited to another major conference by anybody. And I won't go on unless I'm invited.
Sure.
And I always bring my books with me. I have 29 books in print. I specialize in low observables. It's called stealth. So I have books on the Blackbird, on the B-2 stealth bomber, on the F-22, the F-35, and the first operational stealth machines were not airplanes, they were submarines. So I've been on 21 nuclear-powered submarines.
Wow.
I'm an Air Force guy, so that's kind of unusual.
Sure.
And I photographed internally from the reactor bulkhead forward, most everything on the Los Angeles class, which is the 6088 class boat, the 6088I, that's the Los Angeles class, where they took the dive planes off the sail, put them on the hull.
Wow.
I've been on a Seawolf boat. It took me 7.5 years to get on the USS Connecticut. I got a friend of mine who was on the Connecticut, and he said, "How in the hell did you get a camera in that sub?"
Yeah, right.
I said, "I asked."
And
the Navy, at least the admirals do, they seem to like what I do because it's a great, you want to go in the submarine service? Here's a couple books to show you what it's
so
about.
Cool.
And I've been on a Virginia class. I have photographed extensively the early Ohio boats, the C4 boats, and the D5 boats. Those are the ones that carried nuclear weapons.
Shit.
And I've been waiting almost 8 years to get on one of the 4 modified Ohio boats. They turned into an arsenal boat. It carries 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles. And they took 20 of the 24 launch tubes, converted them where there's 7 cruise missiles in each one, and it's like a revolver. They don't go all at the same time. They go individually. And I've been waiting forever. I was supposed to shoot the Michigan at Bangor on Hood Canal in Washington State in January. And as I was preparing to go up there, I called up Subgroup 9, and the PAO said, the Michigan is not, we can't tell you when it's coming back. I can call you once it's back, but it's not coming back for a while. I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "It's been redeployed somewhere else in the Pacific." So I'm sitting there with my thumb up my butt, waiting for something to happen. And I talked to the PAO yesterday, and he said, it's not around, so I'll call you when it is. So I'm just sitting there waiting. And this way I'll finish, I will finish my 3rd volume on the Ohio boats. And they're pictorial histories, and they're just a lot of fun. They're machines.
That's so cool.
They're
amazing machines.
Yeah, and you're living in a steel tube. Now, a Seawolf sub, there's only 3 of them. There's the USS Seawolf, which is SSN 21, the Connecticut, which is SSN 22, and the Jimmy Carter. The Jimmy Carter is a spook boat. They put a 100-foot extension behind the sail where all the spook shit is. They can literally go outside the submarine at over 1,000 feet deep and go do stuff. They can retrieve stuff. The torpedo tubes are bigger. It has a 2-story torpedo room. The Seawolf, versus it has 8 torpedo tubes versus the rest of the submarines in the Navy only have 4 torpedo tubes. And when they went out, when the Connecticut or the Seawolf, when they go out on patrol, they carry 50 torpedoes, 50 Mark 48s. They have the ability, when they were built, and they still have the ability today, for one submarine to sink the entire northern Soviet, or now Russian, fleet.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's why you don't fuck with America.
And it was so cool because you walk into the upper torpedo room, and then they hit a lever, and the floor slides away, and below that is the other half of the torpedo room. So I like I said, that was what I wanted to see.
Sure.
They let me shoot everything.
That's so cool.
And
That's amazing.
I have a hero shot of me sitting at the chief of the watch station, which is the ballast control station.
Damn. It means like feels super futuristic, right? Like
yeah.
Like the head of a space station.
Yeah. So I've been having a good time doing stuff like that. And
that is so cool. I was gonna say, Jim, we have you and me have a mutual friend, Heidi Pop, and she she co-hosts with us. She co-hosts with us on Flying Chariots, and she is amazing. I think she talks so highly of you too. So yeah, how'd you guys meet?
I met her. I was on with Mr. B out of Perth, Australia, Terry Beckwith. Yeah, and that's where I met Heidi. That's where I met Chastity.
Chastity.
I met her too.
Cool.
She's I was like her fairy godfather. This is for Chastity, because she was having a real hard time. Her mother is paraplegic, and of course she's been has been battling and has won the curse of addiction. And it was just a delight to meet her in person. And I don't make friends very easily. I'm very, very particular of the people I hang with. But the UFO, spooky airplane, things that go bump in the night, people, they're my people. I feel right at home with them. And like I say, I was just in Vegas with Dave Scott, and there was about 20 of us there, and I was sort of the tour guide of taking them to the base camp just below Whitesides on the back road to Area 51, and Dave and a couple of guys went all the way to where they can't go any farther, and took their hero shots and came back. And then we went to, most of them hadn't been to the Little Italy Inn, and we went there and we had dinner, and then we came back to Vegas. If we had left a little bit earlier, I would have taken them to the fence line at Tonopah Test Range also. But that said, that'll be for the next time. So that's how I got into this community, and I really do enjoy it. And apparently people like to hear what I have to say.
Yeah, you're very likable, Jim. And again, like Heidi,
no, you can. I have a couple ex-wives that will dispute that. My first one, I'm still close to. She's like my sister. We were married 20 years, but we buried 2 children, and our marriage couldn't survive. But I've always been close to her.
That's awesome.
I'm not in love with her, but I love her like a sister.
Oh, that's sweet.
And she's very protective of the people around me. And matter of fact, she called me this morning and gave me hell. I said, "Well, you're up there in Seattle taking care of your oldest, dearest friend." I said, "What about your wife?" My wife is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she's in early stages. And that's breaking my heart. Right now, she can operate. It's not bad yet.
Sure.
But I know it's going to be, because there's no cure, and it doesn't get any better. But I'm there till the end for her.
Oh, Jim.
Really sweet.
And so that's the cards I've been dealt with, and so that's what I have to live with. But it took me 4 wives to find one that was absolutely perfect. And then after 18 years, to come down with this shit, this goddamn curse. And I don't know if it was the jab that caused it, because a lot of people are dying of things that they shouldn't be dying of.
Sure.
I'm a pure blood. I told her, I said, I don't want you to get this fucking jab, because there's something that's not right. When the federal government is trying to shove it down your throat, you know it's not, because they have your best interest in mind. And I had enough immunization in 27 years of total military time. I've had everything from anthrax on down, as far as. So when I was retired in 97, yeah, 97. When they told me I was retired, I was in the E9 slot. I knew I was going to make E8. I retired as an E7 Master Sergeant, but I knew I was going to make E9. But I came in the June drill of 97, said, "Oh, you're not getting orders for senior Master Sergeant. You're getting orders to retire." The word came down from the Pentagon, or from the Department of Defense, that everybody in the military with 20 good years, E6 and above or O5 and above, are being retired. It was Bill Clinton's peace dividend. So I retired as an Air Force Master Sergeant. And by the way, how long do we have?
Oh, we usually go about an hour or so.
Yeah, we're about.
Okay. It's already been an hour, but
Yeah.
I'm the only guy in my neighborhood to have scrounged a Blackbird and 2 C5s to move it.
Wow.
Ben Rich, who was the president of the Skunk Works, and I had a conversation about once a quarter for 20 years. And in August of '89, Ben called me at home. He said, "Jim, the Blackbirds aren't going to make it through Congress. And if anybody could scrounge one, it's you." I said, "Okay, challenge accepted." And bless you. I didn't hear you, but I saw you.
Muted.
Yeah. So he said, when the president of the Skunk Works said, if anybody can scrounge one, it's you. You take up on his challenge. So this is before cell phones and long distance calls were expensive. So I jumped in my car and I head over to the guard base. I got on the DSN network, which is a government phone network. And I called the adjutant general from the state of New York, up in Newburgh, New York. And the secretary answered the phone and says, "General Weaver's office." I said, "Yes, ma'am. Is General Weaver available?" "I'm Sergeant Goodall with the 133rd. That was the 133rd Airlift Wing." He said, "Just a minute, Sarge, I'll put you through." Well, General Weaver gets on the other side and he said, "Hey, Sarge, how can I help you?" And I said, "Sir, I have a question. I have a proposition for you." He said, "Shoot, what is it?" He said, "How would the New York Air Guard like to move the world's fastest airplane in a couple of your C5s?" It was dead silence for about 10 or 15 seconds. He said, "You mean Blackbird?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "When you're ready, you call Will Hall." About the same time, Pratt and Whitney was trying to get a C5 for West Palm Beach. They're going to put it on a wind vane. So even if it were a hurricane, it would always be pointing in the wind. And his name's Arnie Gunderson. He's Mr. J58. That's the engine that powers the Blackbird. And Arnie was trying to lease a C5. He called the Air Force and said, "Would you lease us a C5?" And they said, "Yeah. It's $967,000 a day plus gas." So I scrounged 2 C5s for 8 days each. So I'm assigned. I get the paperwork. I convinced the entire Minnesota congressional delegation to write a letter to Air Force, the Air Force Museum, justifying why the Minnesota Air Guard Museum should have a Blackbird. Because Honeywell is Minneapolis based. They supplied all the electronics, most of the avionics for the Blackbird program. And Rosemont, which is also a Minneapolis or Minnesota company, supplied all the air data systems, the static pitot tube and whatever. So I managed to get the entire Minnesota congressional delegation 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans that have never agreed on anything before or since to sign off on the letter. And when I got the letter from the Air Force Museum saying that we have been assigned the 8th production Blackbird, it's an A-12, number 128, I about shit my pants. So I helped take apart the SR-71C that it was up to Beale Air Force Base that went to Hill Air Force Base. So I knew, and I brought a bunch of guys with me so we could help them. So we flew in with a C-130 with 18,000 pounds of equipment. There was a total of 14 of us. We landed at Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, taxied up to what is now the Skunk Works, unloaded everything, and it took us 2.5 days to take the wings, cut the wings off the 8th production Blackbird. And then we left because we had to arrange. Now we had the airplane all parts ready to be loaded. So we contacted the New York Air Guard. They scheduled a flight to come in on the 27th of October, 1991. And on that day, we loaded the Blackbird into a New York Air Guard C-5A. Now, one of the funny things, I'm at the Air Guard Museum. I was during the week. The phone rang and I answered it. Minnesota Air Guard Museum Sergeant Goodall. So this is Colonel so-and-so from Secretary of the Air Force's Office of Public Affairs. I want to speak to the officer in charge of the recovery of your Blackbird. I said, you're speaking to him. I said, no, I'm talking to the officer who is in charge. I said, Colonel, I'm in charge of the recovery of the airplane. It's my idea. I'm in charge of it. How can I help you? I mean, you could see him saying, oh, shit, I got to talk to an enlisted guy. They said, well, I would like to bring a cameraman and a video guy with me so we can document it. I said, not a problem. Said, we're going to load it on October 27th, 1991. When you go up to security at the Skunk Works there at Palmdale, you tell them that Sergeant Goodall has approved you to come on the flight line to photograph and videotape the loading of the Blackbird, and you could almost hear his jaws almost ready to break because they're so. I have to ask a goddamn sergeant, and I'm a colonel. Well, too bad.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so we did, but the funny thing that happened before that, right after we got the notice that we were given clearance to see we're getting the A-12, I went to Palmdale and I talked to, I think it was Tory Larson, I think was the general manager there. And I talked to him and he said, hey, come on down. We'll go see your airplane. So I go up into security there. It's outside the fence line at Palmdale. And there's no one there, but the door's open and I can hear people behind the wall. So I hit the buzzer. I said, and I hear a female voice, who's there? I said, Jim Goodall. Dead silence. The Jim Goodall was the response. I said, well, there are 5 of us. My grandfather and my dad are both passed away. You have me, you have my son James, he was a teenager at the time, and my grandson, who was just a little guy. So, but I'm probably the guy you're referring to. And around the corner, her name was Glenna Farley. She looks me up and down and she says, you're not the 800-pound gorilla I was told to believe. And I said, I've been at the Skunk Works in security for 21 years.
Dang.
I heard your name the first week I was employed.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've heard your name about once a quarter for the last 20 years. And that's probably because I spoke to Ben Rich about once a quarter for 20 plus years. And every time he spoke to me, he'd log it in who we talked to.
Damn.
And so it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, as I say, Jim, you got stories after stories. You go back to back.
The most fun part of this whole thing about getting the Blackbird On the 28th of October 1991, we left. No, 27th, we left Palmdale. They didn't have fuel there, so we flew in the C5 from there up to Travis. When we loaded the Blackbird into the inside of the C5, we only had a total of 1.5 inches of clearance on the floorboards.
Mm.
We had to take our outer wheels off, the brake assemblies off, and it was going to be tight. Push comes to shove, we could have put a come along in between and torqued them in if I needed an extra inch. But we loaded it, secured it. We took off. We landed at Travis. We spent the night.
That's an ordeal.
Yeah, spent the night in a real nice part. I can't remember the name of the town, but it's near Santa Rosa. And then came back the next morning. We were all fueled up. We had a whole parade of people from Travis walking through the C5, looking at this incredible piece of equipment in it. At the time, it was the largest single object carried internally in an operational airplane. It was 11 feet. It was 13 feet wide, 11 feet high, and 101 feet long. That was just one thing inside of the airplane. So,
Yeah.
So we take off from Travis. It's the 28th of October. We're about 40 minutes out. The chief master sergeant, who's the load master, he's heading down to check the load. I said, "Can I go with you?" They said, "Normally the answer would be no, but since this is your baby, sure."
Mm-hmm.
So go downstairs. There's my Blackbird. It's all secured. I had put a wheel chock in underneath the canopy because the counterbalance wouldn't hold the charge. We eventually had just put new seals in it. But it weighs a ton. So I climbed up in the landing gear. I walked along the chines on where the ribs were. I got inside opened the canopy. It latched open. I had a 5-gallon bucket in the ejector seat, and the seat's all the way down, and a cushion. I go in there. I close the canopy, and I'm in there for about 45 minutes, going zoom, zoom. I mean, I'm sitting in the cockpit of a Blackbird. And then I hear a rap on the bottom, and he said, "Hey, we have to go upstairs." I said, "Okay." So we go back upstairs. Now we're just starting our descent into Minneapolis. And the chief came to me and said, "The boss said you could be in the cockpit when we land." I'm already in the front end of the C5. That's where there's behind the wing box is room for 75 passengers in first class seats. So go back down, get back into the cockpit, and I'm in the cockpit when we land at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. We unloaded it. You couldn't have slapped the grin off my face with a 2x4 with nails in it.
Well, of course not.
It was like winning the Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, and the World Series all in the same day.
I was like, yeah, not too many people get a Blackbird and get to like play with it, especially when you described about you were hopped into the cockpit and you kind of like imagine you're flying it. It's kind of like the 10-year-old you that remember going into that one cockpit, and it's kind of like the whole. It's all circular, you know.
So I called Ben Rich. He's still president of Skunk Works. I said, "Ben, I have a record on the Blackbird that no one else will ever be able to meet or match." Yeah. And they said, "What's that?" He says, "I've been in the cockpit of a Blackbird at 33,000 feet at Mach 0.72 inside another airplane." Damn. And I landed it as well. And he started laughing. He said he was laughing so hard. He said, "I almost wet my pants." So,
shit.
And we had a documentary made on it, and we had it for 15 years, and then the rat bastard from the Air Force Museum took it from us because it wasn't. This is post 9/11, because it wasn't readily accessible by the general public.
Right.
Where'd they put it? If I can put it at headquarters of the CIA, where no one from the general public can get to it. So once they had it, they took it over the Christmas holidays, and those bastards knew that we wouldn't be able to fight it because from Thanksgiving to January 3rd, not much happens in an air guard base or even the military, the Air Force at the time. That's sort of a downtime. And the bastards came over. They did it over the holidays, which means the people who could react to it weren't there. But when they had the official unveiling, I wasn't invited, but they came out with a booklet on the A-12, and they called it Archangel. The U-2 was Angel, the A-12 was Archangel. You open up the booklet, the very first photograph you see is mine.
Dude.
It's taken of my A-12 from the top of the alert hangars at Twin Cities Airport. They didn't ask my permission, and I didn't get photo credit. So I called a friend of mine, James Stevenson. And Jim is an author as well, but he's also had a law degree from Harvard. He doesn't practice law. He's just fascinated with law, but he also specializes in copyright. I said, the CIA used my photo without my permission. He just says, oh boy. The maximum you can charge them for an unauthorized use of a copyrighted photo is $37,500. So I sent the CIA a bill for $37,500. And I get this sarcastic response back saying, we could have purchased this thing for $400 at a stock photo place or got it from Lockheed for nothing. I said, if you could have, you would have.
Yeah.
I have. So how do we know it's your photo? I said, because it's appeared in 10 different publications, including the Wall Street Journal.
Dun, dun, dun. Take that.
So I sent him. It's been in every Blackbird book up to that point that had been published. I had used that photo, and it's always credited James Goodall or Jim Goodall. But there's that funny little circle with a C in it.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't stand for crap. Yeah. So I sent him a photocopy of all 10 pages that have my picture and my name on it. And I get a call from the chief legal counsel for the director of Central Intelligence. That's what Tulsi Gabbard is.
Okay.
And the head of the National Intelligence is in charge of all the spook agencies, CIA, NSA, NRO, DIA, down the line. He said, Mr. Goodall, we understand that, yes, this was your photo. And the gentleman who put the booklet together has a new understanding on the improper use of copyrighted materials.
Damn. There you go.
I said,
put him in your place.
He said, I'm thinking, so we'd like to settle this. I said, but we can't agree to $37,500. I can't authorize that. So I'm thinking to myself, $500, I'd be happy. So I said, Mr. Levine, make me an offer I can't refuse. And he said $5,000. And I said, with one, and all of a sudden, it's a good thing you didn't see my face because I went, ooh, how nice.
Yeah.
I said, with one addition. And he said, what is that? He says, I want permission to come onto the campus of the CIA and do a 360-degree walk around with my camera without any restrictions to photograph my airplane. He said, well, that has to be approved by the Director of National Intelligence. I said, okay, about a week later, I get a call. It's been approved. Who do you want to be there? Be at CIA. I said, April 22nd, 2009. So I fly into Reagan. My buddy, Jim Stevenson, picks me up. So I'm not renting a car. And, we're at Montgomery Village is where he lives. His wife's out of town on business. I'm in her car, so I'm not renting a car. So I drive up, go to the contractor's gate at CIA. As I'm rolling down the window, I don't even have my ID out. The guard said, Mr. Goodall, welcome to CIA. So he knew I was coming. He knew what I looked like. And I said, here's a pass. It says DV parking. You park right at the front door of CIA. Leave your camera in the car until you're escorted. So I went in, big, huge atrium. And I asked the public affairs woman, I've seen this in movies. God damn it. I've seen this in movies. They said, no, that's a sound set. There's never been any movies filmed in this lobby. And the big wall with all the stars on it of all the CIA people have been killed in the line of duty. And then I have a thing for blondes. I married 2 of them. Just drop dead, gorgeous blonde in a red suit with black. They had to be at least 4-inch. And I swear they were 5-inch black spikes, patent leather with an ankle strap. She walked in and
was she wearing a strap on?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And she said, I'm Michelle. I'm the public affairs officer. So I said, I don't know how you got this, how you pulled this off. We don't let the general public, even if you're in the air guard or whatever it is, to come onto this facility, especially with a camera. But it's been approved, but we have to go in and sign some papers first. So I met Mr. Levine. I was hoping to get a check from CIA, but it's just the standard government check that you get.
Sure. Okay.
So it doesn't even say CIA on it. So I deposited it when I got home.
Yeah, why not? Perfect. You got some money though for the pictures.
Yeah, I did. And I did a complete walk around. And then we went to the gift store once I put my camera back in the car, and I bought a CIA t-shirt and a CIA polo shirt.
Perfect.
And I've outgrown them all because in 2005, I weighed 375 pounds. My third wife wanted to kill me, so she just kept putting food in front of me. I'm mostly Sicilian. I eat whatever you put in front of me.
Hey, I'm Sicilian too. Look at that.
Yeah. and January of 05, I didn't realize that my marriage was soon to evaporate. I had just gotten out of the shower and I got a side view. I looked over and there's a full-length mirror and I got a side view of me. I was disgusted. I went on a diet. I lost 115 pounds in 5 months. In 5 months. My doctor got pissed at me. He said, I don't want you to lose any more weight for another decade. So
he thought you were taking tapeworms.
Yeah, he probably did. I went on 1,000 calories a day. That was it. And nothing white, nothing white, nothing after 7 o'clock at night, but water. And so I got down to 265, 275. It went up and down. But over COVID, I went from 265 to 199. And just before I came up here to Seattle, I was 188. I'm exactly half the weight I was at my maximum. And I've been below 180 or 280 since 2005, and I've been below 200 since 2019.
That's awesome, Jim.
Yeah,
no, it's so good to hear that you're healthy and you're.
And I know I'm and I've had visions. I have about a dozen dreams that have all come true that have blown me away.
Well, I think one of your dreams were coming onto my show and sharing some stories and whatnot.
One of my dreams, I told my first wife, I'm going to be in San Francisco for a major earthquake. I was there for the Loma Prieta earthquake in 89. I was downtown San Francisco.
Jesus.
I'm never downtown San Francisco. I don't stay there. I have family down in the East Bay, and I grew up down the peninsula. But I also had another one that I couldn't tell anybody because it was too outrageous. I watched in a dream 2 airliners hit the World Trade Center.
Oh, damn.
And I saw that in 2000, right around 2009. No, it was 10 years before it happened. So it was still in the 90s. But it was so outrageous, I couldn't tell anybody.
Oh, now you got conspiracy theories, Jim, that you're...
And I have also had another one, and I'm kind of nervous right now. I've had another one because...
Don't say it.
I told everybody. I know I'm going to be in Seattle, where I'm at right this minute, when the Cascadia subduction zone goes, and when it goes, they said it's going to be on the Richter scale a 10 for 10 at least 10 minutes, and it'll have vertical movements of 35 to 45 feet. He said there'll be nothing left west of I-5.
Jesus.
Yeah.
God.
Well,
Yeah.
shit.
And that's going to happen. It's not a maybe. The Cascadia subduction zone has gone on average about every 250 years. They proved this with core samples. They tell you when the tsunamis have hit.
Man.
And it's 100 years past due.
Jesus, the ticking time bomb.
Yep. And I know I'm going to be here when it happens, but I also, in my dreams, know that people that are near and dear to me up here, I only have a few people. My friend Lee,
like Heidi Pop.
Well, that's Southern California. Now,
okay. Well, still, she's in your heart, nonetheless.
But the Cascadia subduction zone stops at Eureka, and that's about where the San Andreas Fault goes inland and goes down through San Francisco.
Okay. Well, Jim, on that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we're running out of time here because we got to get going ourselves.
All right.
But no, Jim, you had so many stories and you just kept on going.
Lots of good stories.
You got some good shit, like just back to back. No, Jim, I'd love to have you back on, and maybe have Heidi back on with us, and we'll just have a big chit chat again. Because
I mean, someone asked me how long I could talk on things I'm interested in.
You probably do 7 hours straight.
I said minimum 45 minutes. Maximum. I usually lose my voice after about 10 hours.
Yeah. Well, you're a great talker, man.
It was a gas. Everything worked. I was concerned about my laptop
well, it worked out.
And so I have a strong signal here, so everything worked out great.
Yes,
so.
That was perfect.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, Jim, I just want to thank you so much again. Again, it was a big honor for us to have you on our show.
I enjoy it.
Seriously, because again, the fact that I've seen you on Ancient Aliens and the History Channel, and I'm just so indulged in this subject and meeting all these really cool people. Like you said, like once people know who you are, they just flood you on the podcast or documentaries or TV shows and just to hear your side of the story and knowing all these really cool people that are actually in the shit. So
that's Bob Lazar is real.
Oh, he is definitely real.
Yeah.
All right, Jim. Can you stay with me for 2 more minutes?
Sure.